I think it's pretty much a general agreement that if there's one genre of movies that you should not show for kids, apart from, pornography, is horror. Kids are not mature enough to understand that horror movies are just movies. They don't understand that the threats aren't real, and exposing children to this type of movie can scar them for life. Why, then, we still find new horror movies and TV shows being made for kids? But first, I want to ask you to please subscribe to my channel. This helps me a lot, and you can always unsubscribe later if you want to. Think about it. Coraline, Monster House, The Witches, Goosebumps, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Hocus Pocus,
Just like this.
and so on. Why we like horror movies in general is a very interesting question. Why would even a full-grown adult want to voluntarily experience terror and horror? First, it's good to differentiate the two. Terror is that dreading feeling, the anxiety we get from the ambience of a certain scene. A character slowly approaching a door and turning the knob can cause a lot of anticipation in an audience, and that fear of being scared is what we call terror. Horror, on the other hand, is the reaction to something scary, repulsive, or even disgusting. When the door finally opens and something jumps in our face, that's horror. In his book, The Philosophy of Horror, or The Paradoxes of the Heart, Noel Carroll defines horror as being the combination of terror and disgust. Fear has a major role in the evolution of the human species. Let's think back to a couple of thousand years. Take two humans in a similar scenario. They're in a forest, sleeping, when they hear a noise coming from a nearby bush. One human will run away in fear and find a better spot to sleep. But the other, not feeling terror, will approach the bush to see what's making the noise. He gets near and a predator attacks. He can either get horrified and fight for his life and maybe win, or just don't feel anything and die. In a wild environment, horror and terror can be the difference between dying young or living long enough to reproduce and generate new humans, the ultimate goal of our species. We are the descendants of the coward ones, of the humans that ran away scared rather than the brave ones that faced their fears. And that's why our brain rewards fear. When we get scared, our brain releases adrenaline and noradrenaline, hormones responsible for the fight or flight response, and dopamine, the hormone of pleasure. Dopamine acts as a form of reward on our brain for staying alert and running away in a life or death situation, and it's released after adrenaline and noradrenaline. But the amount released by the brain can be different in each person, and that's why some people might like horror movies more than others. Plus, movies are made of stories, and stories are one of the best ways for humans to learn. In his book, The Storytelling Animal, Jonathan Goshel writes, "Children's play is not escapist. It confronts the problem of human condition head-on." He continues showing us a few examples of unedited stories made by preschoolers when a teacher asked, "Will you tell me a story?" The results are very different than what most people would expect from children. Goshel also writes, "A different collection of 360 stories told by preschoolers features the same kind of terrors. Trains running over puppies and kittens, a naughty girl being sent to jail, a baby bunny playing with fire and burning down his house. The typical action in orally told stories by young children include being lost, being stolen, being bitten, dying, being stepped on, being angry, calling the police, running away, or falling down. Stories are a coping mechanism. They can teach us how to deal with a real problem by presenting fictional scenarios with similar but often amplified problems. And we do that naturally. Humans evolved to tell stories. That's why Goshel calls humans the storytelling animals. No one taught these kids how to create absurd and often graphic and dark stories. It's in our DNA. In fact, as we grew up, we're told not to tell these types of stories. "Stop that, it's morbid." Or, "Don't talk about these subjects like that." we're denied one of our most powerful tools to understand the world around us. A recent study made in the University of Chicago shows that adults that often consume horror movies are dealing better with the pandemic, psychologically speaking, than people that don't like horror movies. One reason that horror use may correlate with less psychological distress is that horror fiction allows its audience to practice grappling with negative emotions in a safe setting. The study focuses on adults and not children, but it's safe to assume that children that are exposed to milder, age-appropriate horror movies, if they want to, of course, can turn into adults that like horror movies and usually cope better with psychological distress. So, to sum up, horror movies for kids are no different than stories kids normally create, and having certain movies made for these audiences can slowly acclimate them to the genre, creating more resilient adults that may deal better with stressful situations. Of course, just watching horror movies isn't enough to make a mentally stable adult, and there's a lot of different things that need to be taken into consideration when raising a child. Plus, it's very important to respect the natural curiosity, or lack thereof, of a child towards these movies, and only expose them to milder movies, made for children. Don't force your child to watch Paranormal Activity and expect a positive outcome. Hey guys, I know I haven't posted in a while, but I'm back. This video has a lot of information and a lot of things that I left out of it. This is a topic that can be endlessly discussed, so be sure to leave your impressions, experiences, and thoughts in the comments. In the description you'll find the links to some articles and videos, and to the study from the University of Chicago I used in this video. You'll also find the links to all my social media, so consider following me there as well. If you enjoyed it, share this video with your friends, that can help me a lot, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.